I'm Charlotte. You're watching The Ugly Atheist. And I, as some of you might know, I live currently in Los Angeles, and we had a bunch of horrible fires that came out, erupted. Um, Most likely arson, but we're not entirely sure. It could be just sparks from the power company that where the cables run through the forested areas, and um, some downed lines might have sparked the blaze. I haven't heard what the latest hypotheses are on how the blaze has started. I know they've made a couple of arrests, a couple of different arsons who were caught starting fires in sort of neighborhood areas. But um, time will tell what is what really happened and who the likely suspects are. Who the likely suspects are. But I online, of course, as you can imagine, there's lots of chatter as to what's going on, who's behind it. Some people were saying that the areas that were burned were targeted by some clandestine group to cover up evidence about Diddy and all that stuff. I don't know about that. I doubt that. I mean, I'm sure crazier things have happened, but um, it's sort of we'll see what the investigation unfolds with that on that end. But along the other social media chatter, I see people commenting that God is punishing Hollywood and California for all of their sins against God and against nature and so on. And I wanted to kind of address that just briefly because it's um, the answer to that question, is God punishing California, is definitely no, because fictional characters can't administer punishment or judgment of any kind on real living people. But what is punishing California, what is punishing Los Angeles County, is the citizens and inhabitants themselves, the people, the voters, that they've enacted policies and put corrupt people in power who cause these things to happen. And so that's really what is punishing California. What is not all of California? I got to be specific here. That's really what's punishing Los Angelinos and Los Angeles, is their own political choices and administrative choices. To give you an example, in an article on MassLive.com, we have they're discussing how our reservoirs in the Pacific Palisades area had dried up, and that is just inexcusable. And they're saying that uh, a representative of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Janice Quinones, said that hydrants are designed for fighting fires at one or two houses at a time, not hundreds. Quinones said, and refilling the tanks also requires asking fire departments to pause firefighting efforts. Mayor Bass said 20% of hydrants went dry. So Mayor Bass was MIA, and that's without her leadership. That did not help things at all. Not that her leadership would have added too much, but just her presence and her direction and her ability, her addressing the general public and updating them, that would have been helpful. That would have been very helpful. But she was politicizing out in another country in Africa, um, and this really got me here, where it says the hydrants are designed for firefighting one or two houses at a time. So that was the first time I heard that. I know, generally speaking, in a city that's the case, but if you're California and you experience deadly wildfires on a yearly basis, um, it's inexcusable that our infrastructure isn't updated to the point where we can address these devastating fires. To give you an example, let's say countries like Israel, for example, they are under constant attack, terrorist attacks all the time, and military hostiles are constantly threatening the country. So they appropriately allocated a large percentage of their GDP budgeted towards defense and making sure that their people stay safe and aren't killed. In inventing innovative ways to address the problem, things like the Iron Dome, and of course, trying to garner help from other friendly nations like the U.S. And another example is in South America, in the country of Chile, they experience a lot of earthquakes. So a good portion of their GDP is allocated towards better building codes and materials uh, to mitigate the damage and loss of life that is caused by earthquakes. So you would think, logically, following suit, that California would, understanding that it has a problem also with earthquakes, but with fires that kill way more people than earthquakes, and that they would have a much more robust firefighting system in place. They wouldn't have hydrants that are so limited. They would make sure the reservoirs are beyond full during fire season. Granted, this is winter; it's not normally fire season, but if your reservoirs are just perpetually full, then or build bigger reservoirs or reserve aqueducts or reservoirs that can hold extra water. Um, bottom line is just inexcusable. Instead, the corrupt politicians like Newsom and the mayor of Los Angeles and others were happy to cut firefighting budgets by millions. I've read somewhere, and they are diverting their water away from aqueducts and away from reservoirs and toward the ocean, dumping it into the ocean. And I know they have reasons for that. I heard they need to make sure fresh water is flowing out so that brackish water doesn't come in. So there's things like that. But if you are adequately concerned about fire safety, you would find ways to make your reservoirs full and that you don't run out of water when it's most needed. The other thing that California does is it does not clean up the underbrush throughout their forested lands, and they do this for environmental reasons. That's my understanding. Most places with forests, they go through and clear out all the dry brush, but California doesn't do that. Either they're claiming it's for environmental reasons, but I don't know what the reality is behind that. But I'm myself an environmentalist, but I also, as I get older, understand the importance of keeping people alive, and clearing the underbrush is something that's going to save lives. And unfortunately, we have to prioritize our own species. We have to make sure humans are safe. That's just the nature. That's how nature works. You ensure. I mean, invasive species come into an ecosystem all the time throughout history and have done their damage and displaced other species, and other species go extinct, and that's just how nature works. So, there are sanctuaries for other species of animals to live and thrive in untouched, but when it comes to forested lands next to residential communities or businesses, we have to clear out the underbrush. There's no excuse for that. We can't go through another fire like this. I hope the leadership in Los Angeles and in California has learned their lesson. I hope Gavin Newsom gets replaced by Shanahan or somebody more competent, less corrupt. And let's hope that lessons are learned. So it was stupidity and corruption that punished Los Angeles. It wasn't any deity or anything like that. And on a personal note, I just found out today, sadly, that my ex-mother-in-law had passed away. I was sad because I didn't. I knew she had an illness that was difficult to cure, and I really did like her, and I think I felt like I understood her more after I left my marriage, just because she was a single mom and had to raise kids and make sacrifices to make sure that their needs were met growing up, and I kind of understood that what she had to go through when I was a single parent for a while, and it was sad. I mean, she totally hated me, didn't like me at all, but um, there's no rule that says I have to hate people that hate me. I mean, that takes a lot of energy with as many people as that doesn't like me to just hate everybody back. That's ridiculous. So I think it's okay to like somebody and appreciate somebody that can't stand you. So I did like her, and I appreciated her, and I started to get to a place where I could understand her. Um, but so that was sad, and I'm sure my ex had uh, a very difficult time, navigating the death of a parent. It's never easy, especially a slow, something like cancer that would slowly rob the health and vitality of your parent, and you have to start taking more and more care of them, and that's very, very difficult. I can imagine. My mom is still alive; she's in her 80s, but you know, you never know. Like, I mean, she's going strong and she's doing well, but there will come a time in all of our lives, or those of us with aging parents, where we have to become caregivers, and so it's never easy. So I'm saddened by that whole scenario. I'm saddened that she passed away, and I guess it was a few months ago, but I don't keep in touch with any of those people, so it's understandable that I got the news late. I guess that wraps up today's episode. My name is Charlotte. You're watching The Ugly Atheist, and if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.